Hello, everybody, and welcome to my talk. I first of all want to apologize. Maybe my video or audio is not as good. I don't have a really proper setup, so I hope you guys can bear with me. Anyways, first of all, I would like to thank the HK Game Dev Happy Hour meetup to invite me over to give this talk. Currently, I am in Shanghai, and I cannot be there in person. Maybe one of these days I'll be there. Anyways, let's get to our talk. So the topic of my talk is actually much longer than what you see on the poster that Johnson has posted. So the topic of my talk today is practice is boring, so let's game design it with scores of fun. So a little bit about myself. My name is Cliff Chiu. I am a lifelong gamer, and I'm also a game designer. I'm actually from Hong Kong. 我識講廣東話嘅. But my family immigrated to Canada when I was young, so that's why my English is almost at a native level. And I've been working and living in Shanghai on and off for more than 10 years now. And currently, I'm still working as a lead game designer. And these are some of the projects I've worked on. As you can see, most of these games are from Ubisoft, as I've worked mostly my career right now mostly is on Ubisoft. My latest release is actually this game, Shadows of Tomb Raider. And from the projects that you see here, I've actually worked on a wide variety of genres and platforms, and I've worked mostly as a game designer, some as a level designer, and some as a game content manager. My last release is at Ubisoft is actually this game, Horsehaven World Adventures. You can download that on your mobile devices. And my first game at Ubisoft actually is this game, Beowulf, which was released in 2007, if I remember correctly. And of course, I have some canceled titles as well. And you can see here, Master Thief, which is canceled, the Connect game. And I've actually left out a few titles. They're not as important, but here are some few titles. If you talk about AAA, I've worked on Splinter Cell Blacklist, and of course, Tomb Raider, and so forth. So I've got some experience in game development and game design, and this is it. So a little bit more about myself is currently I have 4 different roles. I am currently I work full-time as a lead game designer at a company called Virtuous. Most of you probably have not heard of it because Virtuous is an outsourcing company. They say outsource, but we mostly provide a service to our clients. We do B2B business mostly. So it's normal that you've never heard of Virtuous. So I work as a lead game designer. I also currently working as a part-time instructor at the Shanghai Vancouver Film School. So this is where I teach level design and game design. And we have a lot of successes. A lot of our students, after they graduated, they actually went to Ubisoft, as well as Virtuous, our company. And we also have a couple of students who went to NetEase, TapTap, and some other big companies in Shanghai locally. I'm also a founder of a meetup group called Random Encounter Shanghai. We do meetups once every 2 weeks. We used to do our meetups every week, but now we've changed our format to do it once every 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So basically, it's just a bunch of game devs locally in Shanghai who are working locally in Shanghai, just meet up for drinks and talk. Sometimes we do presentations and sharings similar to the format you have in Hong Kong. And we also do a lot of collaborations with other event organizers, other game-related events. So sometimes we have like playtesting events or presentations, or we collaborate with the schools so the students can give presentations to actual game developers to get feedback and so forth. So we've been running that for 3 years now, over 3 years now at Random Encounters. And last of all, I'm also a co-founder and organizer for Checkpoint. Checkpoint is a annual game festival placed in Shanghai. Not as big as China Joy, of course, or WePlay. It's a small little like a game fair that we did. So it's a combination of video games, board games, VR, indie titles, some esports. We also have talks that we run throughout the day, as well as other little, side games, VR, and so forth. So we've been doing that for 3 years now, but unfortunately, because of the situation now, this year we decided to stop. So, but we've done so. Yeah, we've done Checkpoint for 3 times now, and let's see how it goes next year. I don't know yet, so I need to talk to my founders. But anyways, so let's talk about game design first. So what does a game designer do? Usually I just throw this meme that's what my mom thinks I do, what my friends think I do, what society thinks I do. It's all about playing video games. What programmers think I play video games. What I think I do is stare at 2 monitors, but usually I'm this guy actually. What I usually do. My parents, actually my mother still don't really, not really sure what I do, but what I do, it's quite complicated. I'm sure most of you, for this audience anyways, most of you understand what I do. But a game designer just does a lot of things, wears multiple hats, and yes, I do play video games, but I'm the guy who's kind of the liaison and try to do a lot of game documents and try to think about what the game experience is and the player experience is and the game mechanics are and so forth. So that's what I usually do. And basically I figure out how to make video games. So for me anyways, video games, I see video games as a medium, and I look at it this way. Like, it's about bringing interactivity throughout 3 big kind of topics. Of course, technology and art is one. Art meaning including audio, and also design, just combining it together. For me anyways, video game is providing an experience to a player with defined rules that provides challenges to a player in pursuit of a goal. And basically I'm trying, as a game designer anyways, I'm trying to do all of this and throughout the whole project. Of course, easier said than done. And how I see video game is, compared to other media anyways, video game, our strong point is that interactivity is our strong point and specific strength, right? If you compare it to like comic books or movies or radio or magazines and whatnot, they are a linear medium, meaning you're just sitting there absorbing, consuming the media, where you're more of a spectator. And whereas in video games, you actually have to make interesting choices and kind of be inside this world and really experience this world that video games is providing to you. And so that's how I see video games as a medium, anyhow. And as a video game designer, this is really how I this is how I think, subconsciously or consciously, when I make video games. So this graph, I've stole this graph from The Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell. So if you're really interested in game design, take a look at this book. But I think Jesse Schell really kind of summarized what a game designer does throughout this graph. So you can see it's like, as a designer, you have to think about, not just the game, but the team, the documents, the pitch, the client, how much resource you're getting, and then going through the process of making this game. And then think about the mechanics, the themes, the playtesting interface, and the player experience. So actually, I have to think about this, depending on the process, of course, of where we are in the game, but these are a lot of things that I have to keep in mind while trying to make this so-called game experience, right, in video games. So in a nutshell, my focus as a game designer is I design gameplay systems in some sort of framework and have some sort of rules and structures in there. But most importantly, I think about crafting as a game designer, I always call myself almost like a craftsman. I'm not really an artist. I'm not a programmer, tech guy, but I'm more about crafting. So I always say like I'm crafting meaningful player experience, right? What is this game for? Why is it meaningful to the player, and why do the player want to play this game? I think a lot about that, right? Like, what is this? Why does this game exist? How does it provide value to the player? Do they learn something? Do they experience something meaningful, emotional sometimes, or maybe more intellectual? I don't know, but depending on project, I always kind of try to provide what kind of value we're trying to push, right? We're not just replicating another video game that's out there. So, anyways, for today, I would love to talk about these kind of games that are more my cup of tea, like AAA games and more hardcore type of games. But I think for tonight's audience, it's a bit too hardcore. So I would like to turn our attention to this game that I worked on, Rocksmith. And to describe Rocksmith is it's kind of hard. So I'm going to cheat a little, and I'm going to show you this trailer to show you what Rocksmith is. For those of you who've maybe never heard of the game or never played the game, but if you've played Guitar Hero back in the day, you'll kind of get the gist of what Rocksmith is trying to do, or what kind of game it is, right? So here we go.
Real guitars, real skills. Rocksmith. Learn guitar while you play.
All right, so quick info. Rocksmith is actually out already for, almost 9 years now. Okay, I feel kind of old. Anyways, so I worked on actually the first Rocksmith. There's actually another Rocksmith, the second one, but I've only worked on the first one. So a little quick info about Rocksmith is a game co-developed by Ubisoft San Francisco and Ubisoft Shanghai. Ubisoft San Francisco is actually the core team, and Ubisoft Shanghai was handling some insourcing and also some other mini games that we worked on. It was released on October 18th, 2011. It was released on PS3, Xbox 360, and on Steam, on PC. And eventually, at first, it supported only guitar, and then eventually it supported bass. And it has key features. Another key feature that it has a dynamic difficulty system for you to learn how to play guitar. It includes over 50 songs right out of the disc with different rock styles, hard rock, metal, country, different various styles. But of course, the sequel is actually much more superior to this one and has even more songs and more variety and more support. And it's actually even more accurate in terms of the tone detection. So anyways, what is Rocksmith? So question maybe you guys can think about it when you're looking at this game, right? What is it? I mean, is it a guitar game? Is it an educational game? Is it a music game? Like, I don't know, like Beatmania or the Taiku game? Is it edutainment? I'm sure you've heard of this term, edutainment. Is it all of this? I mean, and will I become a rock god after playing Rocksmith? The answer is, well, I can't answer that. Yeah, just work hard. You will one day become a rock god. But I would like to talk about like what actually Ubisoft Shanghai worked on. So so I know maybe some of you know how to play guitar, some of you don't, but I'll kind of explain about guitar. If you've learned any instruments, anyways, certain instruments require certain skills. So while you're learning how to play guitar, there's actually different skills you actually need to practice on. So something like fretting speed, harmonics, scales, chords, bends, slides. So these are very guitar skill terms. And getting good at each of these skills takes a lot of time of you practicing over and over and over again. I mean, that's how you get good at anything, to be honest. And especially in music, learning how to play music instruments, it's all about practice, and practicing different skills, right? And for us at Ubisoft Shanghai, when we were talking to Ubisoft San Francisco, they were saying like, hey guys, I mean, this is very new, of course. This is a very new kind of game back in that time anyways. And we have an objective, meaning we have all these guitar skills. They were working on the main game, meaning you actually, the players get to learn how to play various songs on guitar. But in order to get good at those songs, they actually need to practice various skills. But who likes practicing, really, at anything? Because practicing, especially in our like fast food kind of consumption world, no one really has the patience, right? And it gets boring really, really fast, right? But like I said, we are Ubisoft, right? So we make video games. So why don't we apply all the different video game sensibilities and apply them to practicing and make it more fun and less boring and less tedious, right? And to really encourage the player how to actually get them to practice, not because they're disciplined by themselves, but because the game is actually motivating you to actually want to practice and get better, right? So we came up with something called Guitarcade. So the player can either choose to practice certain amount of songs or different songs they would like, or they can choose to go into Guitarcade and play and actually practice some of the specific skills that I just mentioned, right? And here are the goals that we had as for game design for us in Shanghai, right? So while we were thinking about what kind of games apply to what guitar skills, we always think, hey, what's the benefits of this game? Like, how does playing this game, or how do we apply this game to benefit the player in terms of getting better and better and good at certain skills? And what kind of skills applies to this game? How do they improve, right? And how do we make it fun and motivating for players to keep coming back again and again to play these games? And while they're playing, they're actually learning and getting better, right, on these games. So these are some of the goals and objectives that we set to ourselves while we were working on this game with San Francisco. So here's what we did. We actually looked at a bunch of arcade games, so you might recognize some of these games here, and just to see, just to think about the aesthetics, the styles and looks of it, the sights and sound, and see how, like, some of these games kind of look or how it fit with specific guitar skills, right? And also not just the look and also the mechanic as well. So we looked at a bunch of different arcade games, and because we're called Guitarcade, we looked at a lot of these old school, like 8-bit, 16-bit kind of arcade style games to kind of inspire us to make these kind of retro infused games where the art style is totally different from the main game. And we were craving for that. And so this is what we came up with after a bunch of research and back and forth. just looking at different games and getting inspired and brainstorming. These are the eight different games that we came up with. So these are all Guitarcade are actually just guitar skills mini games that are in the Rocksmith game. So it's actually mini games within a bigger, larger Rocksmith game. So we have Ducks, Harmonically Challenged, Scale Runner, Super Slider, Dawn of the Undead, Quick Pick Dash, Big Swing Baseball, and Super Ducks. Because for the sake of time, I will not go into all of these games, but if you're curious, feel free to go on YouTube and check these games out, or even buy the game and check these games out. And so that's how we kind of match the different guitar skills with the different Guitarcade games. Each of these games, in terms of the gameplay, aesthetic, style, and so forth, all match with actually the guitar skills we're going for. But, of course, there's a different challenge that we need to figure out as well. Because, from you can see, I'm from a more traditional video game kind of background, right? And, the tech for the Rocksmith to detect the guitar's tones was good, but it was not perfect. So our other challenge was thinking, we need to think about the guitar almost like a controller, right, to the players, because the players interact with the game using your guitar, not with a controller, right? Because, with those 8 games, if you play with a controller, it's actually really, really easy, almost like no skill at all. But we really need to think about, in terms of design, how does the guitar act as a controller to control what you see and interact with what you see on screen, right? So this was one of the biggest challenge, and to be honest, it was a lot about different design decisions we made and different tweaking and behind the scenes kind of magic that you don't see to kind of trick the player and not trick the player, get the guitar working well with the mini games that we designed. And back then we didn't actually have a lot of time, so we kept things simple, functional, yet addictive and fun. So that's what we did. So here's one game I will talk about. It's called Pick Quick Dash. Our inspiration was from an old Konami game. This is called Track and Field, I believe. It was an old arcade game. And actually in the actual game, so that was inspired to this little ostrich guy in this kind of colorful, retro-inspired kind of environment. And basically, Quick Quick Dash is to get players to familiarize with the guitar's 6 strings. So we actually think about, okay, playing this game, the benefits are string picking and tremolo, right? And so you got to really, really play the guitar while switching lanes and jumping through obstacles and so forth. Again, if you're curious of the game, you can check out the videos on YouTube. And we also think about these Guitarcade games are like, as the pun implied, these are arcade games. So we always think about how to make these short kind of bursts of arcade experience, right? So you're not going to play these games for 2 hours straight. You can if you want, but the goal was to have a little fun, a little short burst of fun, a little distraction from the core main game. And the game will tell you if you suck at certain skills, the game will have a little AI which detects, hey, you kind of, you need to work on or improve this kind of skill. Why don't you try this Guitarcade game in the game, and it will give you a recommendation, and the game will help you jump directly into that little Guitarcade game and play and get good. And once you get good, you'll get good on the songs that you're practicing on. So it really has kind of a loop where the whole game just makes the player better and better as a guitarist. Right. And another thing we looked at, of course, scores, right? Who wants to be top dog in this game? So in each of our games, actually, we have a little score bar, and this actually, if you have friends who owns Rocksmith as well, you can actually compare scores, and it will show you if you beat your friend's score on this arcade game, it will show you on the bar, right? High score, and it's highly replayable, and we have leaderboards, and you can compare yourself online with other players around the world. So this kind of gives a more incentive to, I'm getting better and better at the game, at my guitar skills. And if you're getting better at a game, that means you're getting better as a guitar player as well. So it has good kind of push, right? And so this is basically a typical design process. So this is our overall design process, right? So we looked at which guitar skills we're kind of trying to aim for, and then we looked at different games that inspires us, and we start designing. We start doing design docs. So this is an actual design document from the game, very rough. And we prototype, we try. There are of course technical limitations because of the tone detection from the guitar and the cable, and we test and we evaluate. So this is the typical game design process we used, and it was we test and play test until launch basically, and just little tweaks here and there. So to kind of sum up, Rocksmith, Rocksmith was not the typical video game like Splinter Cell or Tomb Raider, right? It has real life benefits. You play Rocksmith, you're actually learning how to play guitar, right? And we designed Guitarcade to basically improve your guitar skills. And it's actually gamification, to be honest. I didn't use this word in the beginning, but this is true gamification where doing something makes the player feel good, and it's a game, it has scoring mechanics, and the higher the score you have, the higher the skills you have as a guitar player. And another benefits of Rocksmith is it's way cheaper to learn the basics of guitars anyways. Just to buy this game, the console with the cable, than getting a one-on-one guitar lessons. And it's much more, less time consuming because if you do one-on-one guitar lessons, you have to book a room, you have to see the schedule of the person teaching you. But if you play Rocksmith, you play, whenever you're free and whenever you want. You can play Rocksmith late at night if you want, right? And so Rocksmith is basically you play to learn and learn to play. There's to us anyways, while working on Rocksmith, like we don't see a difference between learning and playing. They are one and the same thing in this game, truly in this game anyways. So for me anyways, in a real sense, like Rocksmith is it's gamification, and in real sense it's a definition of like art and technology and more all together. So this is Rocksmith. Alright, so enough of me rambling for half an hour. So that's my talk. Thank you very much for listening to me rambling. I apologize again for the sound quality if it's not good. You can contact me by email or add me on LinkedIn. And thanks a lot. So this is a recording, so I'll answer all your questions on Discord later. Or if you have any other questions, hit me up with an email or even on WeChat and so forth. Right. So thank you very much for listening, and maybe I'll see you guys in person once this whole COVID thing is over one day. Anyways. All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you again for the presentation. I guess I'll start with one question as people start thinking of their own questions, because you were mentioning about how these Guitarcade games were meant to improve people's individual skills in a specific part of their guitar playing. How did you measure effective learning?
Really good question. Because I did mention in the talk there's something called dynamic difficulty. This is something they implemented in the core game where you're learning the songs. So how it works is in the core game, if you play really poorly, there will be less and less notes to play. And if it's like chords or maybe the complexity of the song, it will get much more simple. If you miss some notes or you miss certain notes while you're playing, so the game while you're playing it will adjust the difficulty. And to kind of measure how the player is getting better at the game from the Guitarcade games, there is a scoring system in there, which that kind of tracks how well you're playing, and it kind of uses that data to compare with the core game. I'm not too sure how it works underneath it because we were more focused on the Guitarcade games, but there are a lot of different little trackers and statistics that they use it back in the main game to kind of track progress. So that's how they kind of measure it. And the scoring is a good indicator of how good or bad the player is playing. For example, like the simplest game that we had called Ducks is basically just how fast can you kill the ducks, can you shoot the ducks while playing on guitar. So it's just how quickly you can shoot the ducks and how fast they can die. So that's pretty much it. For the player, we wanted to be as transparent as possible in terms of how well or how bad the player is doing. At the end of the day, we want the player to feel they have a sense of accomplishment and they're having fun playing the game.
Let's see. Someone's typing a question at the moment, but I do have another question.
Okay.
You were saying that you were designing, playtesting, and revising, until the game was pushed out. How long was that? Or roughly for each mini game, how long did it take?
Okay, so a little behind the scenes. Initially, we were tasked to actually create 10 different mini games. Initially, there was 10. But because of time constraints and everything else, game dev in general, we were only able to ship 8 games. The first 2 games took a longer time, I would say, a bit more longer, because we were trying to figure out how to use the engine, what is Rocksmith like, and myself, I was learning how to play guitar. I did not know how to play guitar at all, so I was trying to learn all of this in the beginning. So that took us quite some time just to learn the tech, learn guitar, like learning a music instrument, and just figuring out like what do you mean by benefits? What do you mean by like practicing this? Playing this game will improve your skills. So all of that was a pretty high learning curve in the beginning. So the first 2 games took a couple of months. I don't remember the exact dates, but at the peak of development, in parallel, we were basically working like 6 of those 10 planned mini games at the same time. So we basically have like 1 or 2 programmer per mini game. And then the art was just different artists working, or 1 artist working on 2 or 3 games, things like that. The last 2 games was done very quickly because there's lack of time. So it was developed really quickly. I wouldn't say they were as good as the other ones, but it's functional, it works. It's not perfect, but they work. In terms of, if you're asking about like the team structure, it was 2 game designers, myself and another colleague of mine. Us 2 were in charge of doing those 8 mini games. Of course, Ubisoft San Francisco had to make the approvals of what we pitched to them or what we proposed. And once we get the green light, it's just going through the process of prototyping, developing the game, having different feedback and visual effects and sound and all that in there. And it was just a cycle of process. In terms of how many iterations, I'm really blurry on that. It was just like keep going, keep working, keep testing until the deadline. Basically, it's kind of like chaotic order structure kind of thing, as with game development, right?
Yeah, as is often happens with game development.
Exactly.
We do have a question, from Tom, who says that he realized that you did not work on the sequel, but in case you have any answer or idea, did you know what was? Sorry, let me read this. Was there a focus for the sequel? Was it an opportunity to provide more songs, or were there a little bit of gameplay changes and so on and so forth? Like, were there any ideas for the sequel?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but for the Guitar Arcade games, because we did talk a lot about different ideas, and in the sequel, they did use a couple of, while we were like just throwing ideas around, they did use a couple of ideas that we were talking about in the sequel for the Guitar Arcade games. And I would say, personally, the sequel is a better product at the end because it's basically a big iteration of the first game. But in terms of like the behind the scenes, I don't have really anything for you, unfortunately, because we did not work on a sequel. There were talk about
having Ubisoft Shanghai work on a sequel, and then I don't know, some scheduling or something happened, and we didn't get it.
We have this next question from Chris, who says, "How was the response of the learners and players regarding the improvement of skills, but also motivation?"
The response was good. Good in terms of like the game. We did test the game on people who has no clue about music playing or about or playing with the guitar instrument, right? Or no, almost like zero musical instrument learning or playing, right? And we tested on these people, and most of them, yeah, they can play a song after playing the game, basically. And the response was pretty good. I mean, really good, because they were, like I said, they were learning and playing at the same time, and it's a real life benefit skill, not like Guitar Hero where you're very good with pressing different color buttons, where else you're really spending the time and energy learning how to play an actual 6-string guitar. So the response was really good. The second one, I think it got way better response, because they were just getting all the feedback from the first game and then just applying on the second one. And the integration, I think, with the guitar gate and the main game and the second game is actually much better, because they were learning how to they learn how to make improvements on it. Some teachers applied your games into their lessons. I'm not sure. But we did, while we were developing the game, like doing the high level pitches, I mean, we did talk about like, this is not a very typical video game. I mean, this game, when it was launched, the first one too, you can buy the game at a guitar store or music shops. And we had Rocksmith kiosks at guitar stores in North America, also in Hong Kong as well. When Rocksmith was launched and then I went back to Hong Kong, like I was surprised. Oh, an actual kiosk of our game. And yeah, it was like, you can get this at music shops, not just a typical like, in some sort of getting a game there, like a game store, right? You can go to a music store, which was like, it was a plan, like the marketing was perfect, because it was not targeted as a Call of Duty competitor, obviously, but it was kind of like had a long tail. The benefits are like time, basically, right? And expense. I mean, buying a console, guitar, and the game, compared to getting one-to-one guitar lessons with a teacher, that's totally, the cost and the time, that's totally different. And of course, Rocksmith, if it's for advanced guitar players, it's definitely not for these type of people in terms of target audience. Yeah, because if you're a really good guitarist, like there's no point in really using this to learn guitar. I mean, you can play a like Guitar Hero kind of game, but or learning new songs. But in terms of improving your guitar skills, not really target for these type of people.
So we have a question. What was the biggest challenge in making a game that teaches guitar, especially when you didn't know how to play one? And how do you make that work besides trying to learn it?
So what we had, very good question, because what we had was we had two actually guitar players in our team. So I was having one-on-one lessons in some sense, casually, with the other team members, learning guitar. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, learn how to play guitar, how to pick guitar. I didn't actually get formal guitar lessons, but they had an early build as well, so I was playing that. Learning songs on YouTube, learning how to play guitar on YouTube, and just quickly grasping like the foundational stuff on guitar. What are chords? How do you play a note? What strings are there, and all that stuff. And when you're asking how did you make that work, do you mean the technology or?
Well, they may be typing it up. I think a possible way to interpret that is, how do you design while still learning something? Or did you have to completely learn everything as much as you can and then design or was it alongside each other?
It's in parallel. I will say in parallel, because while I was working at Rocksmith, I had a couple of years experience in game design already. So and we approached the Guitarcade game as arcade games. So really simple mechanics, really simple controls, and just looking at it from a game of, and looking at the guitar as a controller, like I said in the PowerPoint, right? Like, how does this guitar work as a controller? How does the input affect what you see on screen? And so that's how I approached it. If you're not looking at it from like the musical standpoint, but of course we need to think about like how does this game apply to different skills. I mean, it's like learning and making the game at the same time. That's how I would describe it. Because at the end of the project, I was still learning how to play guitar. To be honest, I wasn't that good as myself. But the other guys, the developers in San Francisco, basically they were practicing every day as well. So they were also kind of in my shoes. Of course, they practiced longer, but they were in my shoes in terms of like I don't know anything about guitar. And they had to practice and learn really quickly while trying to apply like all these game design methodologies to create the game.
I do have another question, because you mentioned before you would occasionally playtest by bringing in people who did not really know how to play the guitar. Was this often within the office or outside, and how effective was the feedback from them?
So we did both. Ubisoft had something more of a formal thing called Games Lab, where they get external people to come in and play games once in a while, depending. Playtesting, I mean, as a game designer, playtesting is part of the process. It's very important to have playtest. So, of course, we do internal playtesting. We just get people from other teams come here, try it, and then give us feedback, do a survey. And as well as external ones where external is different because we actually pay people to come in for like half a day or whatever and play the game. And the playtesting for Rocksmith was quite different from a typical video game because they had to go through sort of different, how should I say, like a player's journey that's different from a typical video game. So that was a bit tricky, and we had to really plan for that game. But some of the guitar games are very simple, like Ducks. If you look online on YouTube, Ducks is basically like a Guitar Hero, where if you're just shooting colored ducks and they represent different notes on a guitar, and the ducks will fly and you try to shoot them. And as time goes, as the game gets more difficult, there's more ducks and they fly faster, and you're just trying to shoot them before they fly off.
Do you think games are in some points better or even able to replace teachers?
Rocksmith, I would say from 0 to intermediate, not expert. Yes, you can. Expert is different, and there is technological limitations on Rocksmith because actually, if you play the game really fast, like if you do like guitar solo, like where it's really really fast, the game can't really catch up. We kind of the game designs around it where it kind of listens to it, but there are a lot of technical limitations where we solve those limitations by a lot of different design kind of things to mask, kind of hide all that limitations. But in terms of like expert, I would say get a guitar teacher by that time, because then the game is you're kind of outgrown from the game, because there are there's some like really advanced tricky guitar skills that the game doesn't teach you. Yeah, but you can be a pretty good guitar player just playing Rocksmith. I won't say like you're gonna be on stage.
So thank you, Cliff, again for preparing that presentation for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.